Well, it didn't look too automatic.
Yeah, well, it was. Well, remember, you wrote it down and did it. Kind of you winged it. So unless you reinforce,
no, I didn't wing it.
Manage. What am I saying?
I just wasn't very good.
You weren't very good at it. And you've gotten better at it.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what we're giving ideas for how to make sure that your sales team really is good, and how not to be fooled into thinking that they're better than they really are. So, item number one on our list of tips for everybody who is watching the webinars: strong brands can create a weak sales force.
Yes.
This has come up before. Elaborate on that if you want, please.
What happens is the brand carries it. Look at websites. You've got some destination websites. They don't have to worry about getting high on search engines because somebody's going to type their name in there anyway. You know, they're going to type in Dell Computers. They're going to type in Hewlett Packard. They're going to type in Ford or Chevrolet or, you know, in every industry so what happens then is you generate a lead and they go and get you. Somebody's got to scrap to get up on the search engines and scrap to get a prospect. Just by pure osmosis, they're going to learn how to do it better because they're having to struggle with it every day. I can't tell you. We had a young fellow one time that worked for us. He was the number 2 salesperson out of 700 people in the country for a very well-known manufacturer. He floundered and foundered here for about 8 months, and finally he didn't sell anything.
Really?
Didn't sell anything.
And that's because basically the brand had been carrying him.
The brand had been carrying him for about 15 years. His assessment was strong, everything. But what happened was it was hard to break out of that because when he showed up with their basic strategy was, this is how much of this product we'll let you have.
Jeez.
And he was making a lot of money. He was highly successful, but he wasn't selling anything.
Number 2, low pricing, small margins can create the illusion of a good sales force.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of this. For many years, when I was out doing a lot of speaking, I thought that I was a pretty hotshot salesperson selling my speaking engagements until I came to the conclusion that the reason why they did it is because I was low on my fee and I would cave in lower. It had nothing to you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
what I'm going to tell you is it's not volume, it's margin. Sales is always a margin game. And what I'm going to suggest to you is that the really good salespeople do 2 things. They sell high volume in high quantity. Oh, what am I saying? High volume. They sell high volume at high margin.
High margin, okay.
I thought it was kind of goofy.
Yeah.
They sell high volume at high margin. They don't tuck and run. They don't cut and run. They don't wow. They don't crack. They know how to substantiate the pricing. And the really good ones are the ones that consistently sell a lot of it at full margin.
Number 3, lack of a strong competition can fool you.
Yeah. What happens is you think that you're highly successful because you have a great sales team. Well, there's not much competition out there. Maybe they're not very good. Maybe you have a competitive product. Maybe you have one that's the first, that's the most innovative, that's the most unique. But here's the real problem. Never again will anyone have a long-term advantage in terms of any product that they offer. Because what happens is somebody's going to go over there in their plant someplace, they're knocking it off right now. And so consequently, you say, man, we've got a great sale. No, you had the right product at the right time, at the right market, and somebody is going to catch you. It's not because your salespeople are any good. Now, they may be very good. I'm not presuming that they're all bad. What I'm saying are these are things that can fool you into believing that maybe they're stronger than they are.
Well, and it happened to me. When I started doing what I've been doing for 12 years, there were very few people around the country who did it. And now there's so many people doing it, it's nearly a commodity.
And Rick, why don't you share with the people watching, because we've talked about it in other webinars. Rick, you do seminars, consulting on crisis communication?
What I do is crisis management. I help companies that are in trouble get out of trouble, prepare for trouble, coach their executives on what to do when they're in those situations, and then I speak on this, and I teach you teach sales principles. I teach crisis management, crisis leadership principles. And when I started doing this 12 years ago, I came from a journalism background. And I started, at that time, there were just a handful of people who were doing this. And then somebody broke the code in the world of journalism. They thought, hey, let's all get out of the journalism business and go out and teach companies how to do this. The thing that saved me was I was fortunate enough to realize that what happened is that most of the people were getting out of journalism and going out to teach people how to either give speeches or how to talk to the press. What I did to differentiate myself and keep my market was to talk about crisis management, which is something that's slow to learn, hard to learn, requires a whole lot of experience, and I had 20 years to build on. So I have a lot of competition in areas where I used to not have competition at all, but what I did is I morphed a lot of my business into the crisis area, and that's enabled me in order to stay in a strong position within my market.
And at the same time, because you and I have talked about it,
Got to be a better salesperson.
got to be a better salesperson.
I had to be.
Because you had to be.
Well,
see, the point is, when the competition comes in, you're going to have to be. And these, what I'm saying here is, you might think it's great, but guess what? The competition is either non-existent or so weak that your sales force is not better.
That's right.
They just are selling a better product.
But I'll tell you something. We've talked in these webinars about you've got to be tough. You've got to when you get knocked down, you got to get back up and do what you've got to do. And many people out there watching us know this. When you start a business and you're living on fumes, and you blow a sales call, and you get off that phone, and you know why
you learn real fast.
You learn real fast.
In fact, real quickly, then we'll move back into this. You
Yeah.
remember when you first came into the business, one of the first things I suggested, I said, Rick, the first thing you need to do is to come to one of our sales training
Yeah,
programs.
exactly.
And it helped you, I believe.
Well, it did, and I'll tell those who are watching us what I found out is it's one thing to get on the telephone and talk to people and be mighty persuasive and friendly and gregarious and all that, but it can be a huge waste of time if you don't know what you're selling and how to sell it, which is what sales training is all
Which
about.
was all the difference.
Which is what we're talking about here.
Okay, what's the next one, Rick?
Okay, the next one is a poorly designed pay plan can lead to lethargy.
Yeah. I've said it before on many webinars, audio programs people listen to. You pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So what happens is, if you don't have a good solid pay plan, if people can't make money, and the strongest salespeople want to make some money, what's going to happen is you're not going to ever build a real strong, sustained sales effort. By the same token, if you have such a strong base that they don't have to do much heavy lifting, and they get a car and they get expenses and a decent base, more than they ever thought they'd make in their lives, now what happens is you also then get lethargy, and in either case you're not constantly evolving the sales force. So what happens is, it looks like you're doing okay, but you're not doing really great.
So you got to find a way to where the happy medium is.
Yes.
Okay. Are you in a sales or maintenance mode? You need to know where you are.
The truth is, are you opening up new accounts, or are you sustaining old ones, and what's keeping the numbers going? Listen to this. I don't care who you sell for, who you work for, what you do. Sooner or later, you run the great risk of losing your customer. Your number one customer is somebody else's number one prospect. So if you're just in a maintenance mode and not opening up new accounts, you've got a lot of revenue coming in, but who's it coming in from? By the same token, if you're having to sell a lot of new stuff but not sustaining anything, that's just as big a problem, because now you've got to go out and find another one all the time, which says to me maybe your salespeople are not servicing the accounts well enough. So what happens is they just kind of, wean off of you. Here's the other thing. Do you have a pay plan, to go back to the previous point, that rewards salespeople for service? Does it reward them so much for service that they don't open up new accounts? Or do you reward them so much for opening new accounts that they don't do the service? Mm-hmm. So everything in life, it's like karma. Karma is the concept. It's like a butterfly. It has to be two wings. One wing and it does this. It has to go both ways.